Happy Wednesday! I finally went to the hair salon after 6 months. After 6 months of cutting my own hair almost every 3 weeks. I feel so alive, you know? It's amazing what a trip to the salon can do for, like, I don't know, your overall feeling of yourself. And this is such an interesting observation too. Like, I feel like on one hand, a lot of my personal practice is to detach from a lot of external kind of validation, even the kind of validation that I personally get from just like the pleasure of something. And at the same time, I also believe in using tools around us to lift ourselves up. And so I think a really good balance is to be able to not attach a lot of our sense of self and a lot of our self-worth to external things, whether it's looks or whether it's career success or whether it's what people think about us, and to not attach our sense of self-worth to that, whilst at the same time just enjoying what life has to offer, you know, all the simple pleasures and, you know, all the fun things like, you know, like makeup and going for a haircut or going for a massage, pampering yourself or going on a vacation. Even though now we can't really travel because of the pandemic, but, you know, we're able to still take some time out for ourselves and like disconnect and relax. And I feel like, you know, there's nothing wrong, and it's so perfectly healthy to be able to, you know, feel totally alive and give appreciation to the fact that we are able to breathe in air and that we're able to, you know, partake in whatever small luxuries that we're able to partake in. And so, yeah, I mean, today's topic is about sensitivities and how do we not get triggered. So do you know what you are usually triggered by when it's actually happening, when you feel offended, when you feel upset, when you start to feel frustrated by what someone is saying, or when you start to feel judged for a comment that someone has made? Are you, number one, aware that it's happening? Are you aware that you are being triggered? Or are you just feeling like it's the other person's fault? They shouldn't have said that. Or, you know, like you just feel bad and that's it, full stop. And the reason I ask this is because I think when I was in my 20s, I didn't really think very much about any of this. And so I would know when I actually feel upset. But I didn't actually reconcile that with the fact that it's because I was being triggered. And so I think that it's really easy in life to have a lot of blame towards other people because they are making a negative comment about us, or maybe they have said something insulting to us, you know. And I think that it's really easy to react to that because it's part of our human nature, right? Like, we feel indignant, we feel like, you know, that's not a good thing to say, you know, and so we have all these like values and principles that we ourselves practice, and when somebody else behaves differently from the way that we think is good or that we believe is right, then naturally as a human being we would have a reaction towards that. And this is one of the main reasons why in my life right now, one of the things that I am most conscious about unlearning, and let's repeat that, right? In my life right now, what I am most conscious about unlearning is the separation between, like, or the definition or the categorizing between good and bad, between right and wrong, you know, because I want to be able in my life to practice my beliefs and my values and my principles without categorizing them as good. Because when I do that, I notice that the opposite of good. If you think something is good, then something must be bad, right? Because, yin and yang, right? And so naturally, that's how like our brains function. And a lot of us don't intentionally judge people. We're nice people, right? We don't go around judging people and stuff like that. However, it is when we examine our own values and principles and our mindset towards our values and principles, we realize that we are very conditioned, we are very trained to put things into good and bad boxes. This is normal, and therefore if something is normal, then there must be an abnormal. And so this is also the divide between us and them. If we feel like, oh, we are good people, then on the flip side, there'll also be, oh, they are not so good people. And so I think this categorization is something that has been trained into us since a very young age. And this is why I say, as an adult, I am learning to unlearn. I'm learning to unlearn a lot of what I feel, a lot of the concepts that I feel like don't really serve me in life right now. Because, the idea of what's good and what's bad, I think it's a very ego-driven idea. But we're not aware of this because we're brought up on this. It's like you've been eating this junk food all your life, and then you think that this is healthy food, and so that's the only food right? And so anything else outside of junk food you don't like. And so similarly, we grow up categorizing and labeling and putting things into good and bad boxes, and we think that's normal. And so we become like, a lot of our values and principles, we're not even aware that we're putting ourselves on the pedestal, in the sense that like we think so highly of like our values and principles that when people behave differently, we have a huge reaction to that, because our values and principles are considered good, right? Which means that if you disagree with me, then yours are considered bad. And that, for me, is not the way I want to live, because that is a very suffering way to live. Imagine like when people disagree with me and I get triggered, that's suffering, right? Because what does being triggered mean, right? Being triggered means I feel frustrated, I feel annoyed, I feel irritated, I feel offended, I feel insulted, I feel angry, and so words like these are the words that we normally use, right? Oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm so annoyed, I'm so irritated, I'm so angry. And we welcome these words into our life because we think that it's normal. And I would say like suffering is part of the human life, which means that we can't avoid having emotions like sadness and anger and disappointment and hurt. And so we have to be able to acknowledge that it is part of our humanity. However, at the same time, we have to be also aware that we don't welcome these emotions into our life as if it's good that we are triggered. What's so ironic is that when we observe ourselves, sometimes we feel like it's so good that we're angry. Because if we're angry, it shows that we're standing up for our beliefs, we're standing up for our principles, and our principles are good. We're standing up for a good thing. And so we welcome that anger. Sometimes we enjoy feeling offended. Of course, consciously, nobody enjoys feeling offended, right? But deep down inside, why are we so easily offended? I always like to ask myself, why? See, there must be a reason I am easily offended, because if I don't enjoy being easily offended, then I will be working on not being offended so often, which means I will be working on understanding why I'm so triggered. However, a lot of the times, the human psychology is such that because I feel protective of myself and I feel like I want to stand by my values and principles, and so then I become defensive without realizing it, because I think that I'm just standing up for myself, and I think I'm just standing up for what's right. I'm standing up for what's good. And therefore, when someone says something that is unflattering, when someone says something that is a criticism, when someone says something that is negative, we want to take offense, you know, because if we don't take offense, we feel like they're getting away with it. If we're not offended, then they're not learning a lesson. But when we examine this illogical logic, and I say illogical logic because even if you are offended, even if you get angry, how is the person learning anything? We think that we're standing up for ourselves when we are triggered, right? Because we're standing up for our beliefs, we're standing up for our principles. And so this person must learn that it's not okay. It's not okay to say things like that, right? And so we react with offense, right? Like, I'm taking offense. But is the person learning anything? It's like you're driving in a car, right? And someone cuts into your lane and you're like, wow, what's that? What's going on? You know, and you swear at them and you give the middle finger and the other person is just driving, la, 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 la. Just because you are angry doesn't mean the other person is learning a lesson. And so again, what we always say, and I'm sure you know this, is like, you know, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It's illogical logic. And why I call it illogical logic is because even though when we go deep down into it and we break it down like how I am doing right now, it sounds logical. However, when we're actually being triggered, it seems like it's the right thing to respond, like it's the right response, you know? So wait, now I'm breaking it down, it sounds illogical. However, when we're actually triggered, our reaction feels very logical. And so that's why I call it illogical logic. And this is why we often self-sabotage. You know, number one, when we are being triggered, we don't even take responsibility that it is us that are being triggered. A lot of the times, we feel like, you know, our manners, we have better manners because that person said something rude. And so we're going to take offense because there's no manners, right? Or the person said something and so negative, and I'm a positive person. And so that's negative. And so then I'm going to take offense at that because I'm positive and that person is saying something negative. And it's illogical logic, right? Because if you're so positive, then why are you so bothered whether somebody else is negative or not, right? Like your positivity triumphs every single time. And so, like, you know, it's illogical to take offense at someone's negativity because in our mind we think we're so positive, and that we're a positive person, and I wouldn't say such a thing. You know, I wouldn't say such a negative thing because I'm a positive person. You should be more positive, huh? Why are you saying such negative thing? I take offense. And it seems very like logical, you know? That it's like the surface reaction. But when we really go deep down and we examine like, oh, hang on, people can always have their opinions. And their opinions and what they say are based on their thoughts, right? And their thoughts are not going to be the same as your thoughts. So let's rewind a little bit, right? Let's go deeper into it. What are people's thoughts made of? What are our thoughts made of? Our thoughts are made up of our worldview, right? It's made up of our beliefs, our principles, our standards, you know, and I say standards because I have this whole other kind of like perspective on having standards and how that can also self-sabotage. They can also be a way to self-sabotage. It's not bad at all, you know. It's just okay, nothing I say here is it's to say like, oh, this is bad, don't do this, right? Because it will defeat the whole purpose of me here trying to illustrate my perspective of how, you know, what I'm trying to practice is to not categorize things as good or bad. What I'm trying to practice is understanding. That's all. I want to understand myself better. I want to understand why someone would behave in a way that I don't agree with better. And I want to understand my own triggers better. And I feel that this is a great practice for myself because it helps me reduce my suffering. Again, what is suffering? It helps me reduce my frustration, my annoyance at people. It helps me not feel offended. It helps me not feel angry, right? And so all of that, it's letting go of suffering, right? People always ask me, how do you let go of suffering? How can you be happy? And this is how we be happy. This is one of the ways. This is one of the many, many practices in life to be happy, right? It's to acknowledge that, hang on, people have thoughts based on their beliefs and standards and principles, and they can say whatever they want to say because we're not the same person. And so when they say something that is unflattering or rude or insulting, or call you names, or whatever it is, right? Whatever people can say about me, I always think to myself, well, if I'm not triggered, then I'll just find it funny, right? If you follow my live chat, you know that one of my favorite analogy is Ajahn Brahm's analogy. It's if someone calls you a dog, then all you have to do is look behind you. There's no tail. You're not a dog, lol. Ha 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 ha. Right? And so for me, like, I even put this in my book, right? If you've read my book, there's the entire subjects that I dedicate to how to not take things personally. And this is interesting because honestly, I never used to think so much about this, right? And I realized that we all want to not get angry. We want to be kind. We want to practice patience. But where does all that come from? Where does patience come from? What actually supports kindness and patience? And I realized that a lot of it is to identify our own triggers and our own sensitivities so that when people are behaving in a way that is different from us, or when people are behaving in a way that we don't agree with, then we can still be patient. We can still be kind, right? Otherwise, we are going to get upset. And when we're upset, we're not patient and we're not kind. And often, we don't even realize that we are behaving in a way that we're not proud of. And so, yeah, if you've just joined us, today we are talking about sensitivities and triggers and how do we actually identify them and let go of them. So I've been talking nonstop for 18 minutes now, so I'm going to read some comments. And hi to everybody saying hi. Scrolling back up. So many of you are greeting me and saying such wonderful things. Let's see. Need to. Every morning I start my day hearing you. Love it. Fantastic. I'm so happy. Peter here says, little things can make your week, such as finally getting to the hairdresser. Mine is being able to choose a different place to eat each week. Yeah, that's such, that really is it's the small little joys in life, like when you can actually take so much joy in just the small things and you look forward to these small things. I think life is just good that way, Let's see. Dennis here says, she always comes up with new ideas, love them. Well, I'm glad that you find them inspiring, I suppose. I don't know if these are new ideas. A lot of it, a lot of what is out in this world they're not new ideas. They're just, and you know what I think? I think like happiness is actually a really simple thing, and we can't run away from a few things, like the cultivation of contentment and peace, and the ability to recognize our own ego. Then we'll be able to identify our triggers and the ability to let go, and not suffer. And so everything it comes back to these few things, acceptance, letting go, understanding, self-awareness, empathy, kindness, patience, like everything comes back to these few things. And so I guess the fun part of this journey of happiness, or learning how to be happy, and I call it fun because I don't know about you, but I really find it fun. Even when I am angry, I'm triggered, I find it interesting, and in that, it's fun because it's so interesting that now I get to observe my own sensitivities, and now I get the opportunity to practice not taking things personally. So every negative comment or every criticism I receive, it's fun in a way because, like that's life, right? Like, I don't want to spend my life just getting offended or upset. I want to have fun living every day. So when I am triggered, it's like, oh, cool, Xandria. Now you can examine yourself. Now you can look into, your own ego, and now you get to understand yourself better. Yay, right? Like if you read my book, it starts with life is either a celebration or a lesson. And this is honestly the foundation of happiness, When things are going well, you're yay celebrating. When things are not going so well, and when you're triggered or you're upset or you're depressed, it's an opportunity to learn something about yourself or about other people or about the people you love. And that in itself, it's the fun part. That's the interesting part. Nicholas here says we are the reactor that's triggered easily, too fast, until we don't have sufficient time to think about it. Yes, that's exactly what triggers mean. It's like a switch, right? It's like someone pokes you, you're like, ow, it's like turning on a switch. And so that's what we want to work on. We don't want to be able to be so easily triggered. Okay, so reading comments. Sujin here says, I hate myself getting triggered so easily. Don't hate yourself. I don't think that there is any cause or any reasons in this world that justify you needing to hate yourself. I think that instead of hating yourself, practice along with me what I'm practicing for my life, which is, be kind to myself. So when I feel like I'm easily triggered, then what I want to practice is kindness towards myself, which means, acknowledge that this is how I'm feeling, and it's fine because I'm normal. I have an ego. I'm human. And so this is a natural reaction. And so I don't blame myself. I don't criticize myself. I accept who I am. That is kindness. And then the next thing I do is I examine why I'm always triggered. And that to me is called taking responsibility for my own happiness. Because if I don't examine and identify why I'm always triggered by usually the same things, maybe not the same people say the same things, but around the same. It's like your parents saying certain things and you're always triggered, or at work when certain people give you, feedback or criticisms and you get triggered. So it's almost always, it revolves around the same thing. And we have to examine why. A lot of it has to do with our need for validation, because we depend so much on external circumstances and to feel good about ourselves. We depend so much on external proof that we are important and that we are worthy. And therefore, when we are triggered, it's because we don't feel worthy. We don't feel like we matter. And this is why so many of us find it so easy to feel offended and to feel disrespected. We only feel disrespected when we crave that respect from people, and to be able to not crave respect from people is to be able to recognize our own need for validation and to ask ourselves, like, okay, even if people don't respect me, the more important question is, do I respect myself. You know, I was just talking to this girl today about, you know, English, and she was saying that she's not very confident in speaking English. And I was saying that if you watch my Instagram stories, you know, I just wrote about how communication is more than just a language. No, sorry, yes, well, communication is more than just a language. And I was saying that, like, some people can speak a language perfectly well, but they don't communicate well. And so whether or not you are speaking perfect English or French or Bahasa or Mandarin, you know, it doesn't matter as much as how well you communicate with someone, right? And I think we put too much pressure on ourselves to come across as polished and perfect. You know, again, that's something that we have to unlearn, because we absorb, you know, like in school, you always kind of feel the pressure to score A's, right? To get as close to 100 as possible. And so it makes sense that as an adult, when it comes to simple things like languages, I mean, not simple, but things like languages, we would also put a lot of pressure on ourselves and judge ourselves for not being, like, you know, good enough. Or what our idea of 100% or idea of what A is, you know, like how in school, you know, we get 100 marks and we want to get A, you know, to feel good enough, right? And so as an adult, when we're self-conscious about like the way we speak in whatever language, a lot of it on the surface, it's like, it's because we worry about what people think about us, but deep down inside, it's that we judge ourselves. And so I was talking to this girl, you know, and she's saying that, yes, you know, like one of the main problem is that she judges herself. And I think that, like, it's so normal that we all judge ourselves so much, you know, that it's become like acceptable, you know. It's like, oh, for me to improve, you know, for me to like have self-development, I need to be hard on myself, right? And I don't think that's true. I think for us to develop ourselves, for us to grow as a person, we just need to understand ourselves better. We need to accept what we understand of ourselves, and we need to take responsibility to change what we don't like about ourselves. And all these three things means taking responsibility for our happiness, right? I really want to know how to control, because once I'm triggered, my voice and face is totally different. Let's see. I think that we don't control our triggers, because it's like a trigger in its nature. It already happened. You know, you're triggered means, oh, you already reacted. So you cannot control it, because you are automatically reacting. And so what you can do, however, is to practice identifying what you're triggered by and why. So it's not like when it's happening, you want to control your trigger. That's just, it's like anger, you know, it's like, wow, when you're feeling angry, then you control it. You cannot say anything, especially at work, right? Even customers shouting at you, you control it inside, you know, like it's not, life is not about that. That's not happiness, you know. This suppression of how we're feeling and controlling our feelings, it's not going to help us, you know. We're going to poof, explode and implode one day. And I think that, like, the practice and the work, it has to come like before the actual situation, right? Like, we need to understand ourselves and look at what we're easily offended by, or what we're easily insulted by, or what we easily get angry off, and we need to be able to think beforehand, you know, like right now, as during this live chat, when you're not being triggered, right? Hopefully you're not being triggered by me. But if you're not being triggered, now is the time to ask yourself, oh yeah, like think about the last 5 times you were triggered, or even the last time you felt offended, insulted, angry, you know, you felt like maybe insecure, you know, like now you think about it and maybe write it down, you know. If you want to write it down, it's also okay, because it's to each its own. You do what is best for you, what kind of practice you want to make. And then you examine why. And you go deeper and deeper into it. And you don't do it when you're being triggered. You do it now. You do it tonight. You do it every night. You do it every morning. This is why I have a 30-day happiness program. Because happiness is a daily practice. It's like, people want to say like, how do I not get angry? How do I let go? I'm like, well, you don't do it during that time. It's like driving a car, right? Like, you need to practice, like braking and signaling and watching out for cars. You need to practice a lot of things so that in times of an emergency, your natural reaction is one that will save you, right? On the road. And so similarly, when we're actually interacting with people, our ability to not take offense, to not be insulted, to not be triggered comes because of our practice beforehand. And this is why if you want to practice, you should do my happiness program. Because every day there is one thing that you practice. Every day there's a different thing. I have a video, and after the video, it's a short video. You watch it every day at the start of your day. And then there's a worksheet that asks you a few questions, and this is my process of understanding myself better. So I've translated my process into a worksheet for you, so you know what questions to ask yourself, and then you have to think about it throughout the day. And there's also a wallpaper on your phone, or you can put on your laptop to remind you to practice that thing for the day, whether it's your tone of voice, whether it's not taking things personally, whether it's bringing your own sunshine, whether it's letting go. You're practicing one thing a day. And so when the time comes, when you're actually like in a very fiery discussion with your colleague, or when you're feeling almost very triggered, in a discussion with your partner, almost turning into argument, then you remember, all the tools that you've been practicing, and then you can actually apply them there during that difficult situation. And I say this because, not because this is the only formula that works. I say it because it's a formula that has worked for me, and it's still working for me. And not just still working for me, but this is the way I practice self-awareness. And I don't try to be aware, like then without any practice. It's like, suddenly I want to be able to lift like heavy weights, before even training. It's not possible. And so like facing like a person we find difficult, or trying to communicate, and when we're getting upset, we're getting triggered, it's like lifting heavy weights, right? It's so difficult. So during that time, right, if you haven't had any practice beforehand, then how are you going to be able to do it? Right? And I think that this is why we self-sabotage as well, because we expect so much of ourselves, and then we think, we're so disappointed with ourselves, and then we feel like we're so stupid, and then we hate ourselves because we feel like, I tell myself that I won't react, I tell myself that I won't be triggered, but I'm still being triggered, I'm still reacting, I'm such a stupid person, I'm never good enough. You see, I try to be confident, but I'm not. I mean, it's not because you're stupid. It's not because you're not capable. It's not because of anything. It's just because it's a lack of practice. Nobody plays the piano, like attempts to play the piano and go like, I'm so stupid, I can't play the piano. Right? You don't criticize yourself for not being able to play the piano immediately, because you know that you need to practice playing the piano before you can actually play a full song. And that is logical. And so when it comes to like difficult situations, I think we expect ourselves to miraculously be able to be this like amazing, kind, patient, wonderful person. But we need to be able to put in the work beforehand, Kelvin here asks, what is your trick to developing compassion when dealing with or surrounded by people who enables triggers, which means people who trigger you, right? The ability to practice compassion towards other people the ability to practice compassion when surrounded by people who trigger me it's the ability to identify my own ego. People cannot trigger you. It is you who are triggered. And when you can understand that nobody can trigger you and it is you who are triggered, then you can step out from it and go, why am I triggered? Let me be curious. Let me try to understand myself better. And in this practice, you are also giving understanding to the other person. So for example, right, if I'm talking to you and you're saying, Xandria, you're so stupid, Xandria, you're so ugly, Xandria, you speak so terribly, Xandria, you're this, Xandria, you're that. You can be saying all these things to me, right? But if I truly understand that nobody can trigger me if I let go of my sensitivities, it means that I am taking responsibility for my own happiness, which means I'm not reacting to what you're saying. And secondly, if you are saying all these things to me, like, Xandria, you're this, Xandria, you're that, you're so lousy, you're such a failure, blah, 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 blah. If you're saying all these things to me, I have to understand actually that whatever it is that you're throwing at me, it's not about me at all. What you are saying is a reflection of your own thoughts, your own needs, your own fears, your own insecurities, your own values, your own principles, right? And whatever you are saying is a reflection of who you are as a person. And that's why I can give compassion. Because I understand that it's not about me. And whatever you're expressing is a kind of suffering that you are going through. Because people who are happy and not suffering won't throw insults, won't try to put you down, So if you truly understand that a thief is in pain, if you truly understand that people who commit crimes are people in pain and not bad people, right? And they just don't know how to help themselves, or they don't have the ability or the privilege of helping themselves, or maybe they don't have the support system to help themselves, and that's why they keep perpetuating the same cycle of violence and crime and negativity, then if you truly understand that it's just pain that they're in, then that's when you can give compassion, right? It doesn't mean that I'm going to stand around for you to rob me. I can give compassion, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to stand around and say, hey, take my money, take my handbag, steal all my things, If you are shouting insults at me, like, as long as you're not hurting me, I'm okay. But if you are like trying to slap me, obviously I'm going to move away. Right? So, like, stand up for yourself. Like, don't get robbed. Don't stand around and let people slap you. Right? Like, if somebody throws a bottle at you, you duck. Right? Stand up for yourself. Right? But if somebody is just insulting you and saying words, it's a reflection of their own pain, right? Like, what is it hurting you? Where does it hurt? It hurts inside, right? So it's the inside that you have to examine. It is not the outside. It is not other people that you have to examine. It's not why are you saying what you're saying. It's why is my inside here being so triggered? It must mean that the work is within. It must mean that, I need to give myself the kind of worthiness, the kind of respect, the kind of love, the kind of kindness, the kind of compassion, the kind of patience that I'm seeking from other people. Because if I can give it to myself, then regardless of what you are saying about me, right? It's nothing. right? All that I'm saying right now is my practice. I'm not saying that I'm like this all the time and I'm never triggered. You know, Xandria never gets angry. Oh, Xandria is always so kind. Xandria is always so zen. That's not true. You know, the only reason I can talk about this is because I myself get triggered at times. But what I've realized is that with conscious practice, I'm able to let go of so many triggers, and today I suffer a lot less because, you know, it's just funny. A lot of the times when people say something insulting or make a negative comment, when I read it, either I feel like they're in pain and I can give compassion, or I feel like it's funny, you know, it's like a joke. And so it doesn't ruin my day. It doesn't change who I am, you know. I don't have to send hate to the person. And so we have to take responsibility for the quality of our moment. If your moment is ruined by somebody else because you are triggered, it means that you're giving your power away. You're giving your happiness away. And this includes your partner. It includes your parents. It includes your siblings. If you are triggered by your family, then you are constantly giving away your happiness to external factors. It means you're outsourcing your happiness all the time. And this is why it's so hard to be happy. It is not your family's comments that's making you unhappy. It is the fact that you keep seeking their approval to feel worthy, and then you're triggered. That's why you're unhappy. If you understand what I mean. Okay, let's try to read more comments. Livon here says, I like replacing triggered with activated. It's a less violent word with more accurate description of the experience. You know, if it works for you, go ahead and use it. I feel like a word is just a word, right? Like it's the meaning we attach to the word. So whichever word resonates with you, it is the word that you can let go of or you can adopt. Shireen here is replying to Linda, it's never easy to love the unlovely. Oh my God, I love that. It's so true. It's not easy, you know, but it is possible. And with practice, then it becomes easy because you stop seeing it as unlovely. You just see it as this is how someone in pain is behaving. And that's not bad. They're not bad, you know, it's not unlovely, you know. It's just the way they are. And you can be grateful that you're not in the position. Linda here says, sometimes I still feel disappointed towards some people when they put me down, especially when I always try my best to treat them good. Yes, and this happens because of our own expectations of how we want to be treated. You know, it's like, you know, I always cook for you, or I always like treat you so nice, you know, like your partner, and then you never like appreciate it, or you never buy me a meal, you never take me out. And I think that, you know, when we really look at ourselves, we have to separate. We need to develop the ability to separate doing what we want to do because it's our own principles and values. It's like, I want to treat people well and treat people good because it's my own principles and values. I need to separate that from I'm doing it because I also want people to treat me well. Because you cannot control how people treat you, right? And so we need to acknowledge that aspect of ourselves of being disappointed when people don't treat us how we treat them, that comes from the ego. What is the ego? The ego is our need to have validation, to prove our worthiness and significance. And so when we can recognize that, then we can separate, right? Walking the journey of practicing our own values and principles and beliefs without imposing or projecting those same values and beliefs towards other people, right? Ni Duong here has a great question. How do you help someone in pain if they cannot identify it themselves, or help someone who is not compassionate? You help them by understanding that that is who they are. We cannot help people take away their pain. Like, we cannot help someone by taking away their pain. We cannot help someone by trying to make them compassionate, because only they can help themselves. So if you genuinely want to help someone, you extend acceptance for their inability at the moment. You know, like, I have friends who I used to feel frustrated at because they can't see certain things that to me is so obvious. And I can see that they're suffering and they're in pain and they're angry and they don't even want to admit that they're angry. And you know, I recognize the feeling of frustration within myself when I'm talking to them. And when I recognize that feeling, I ask myself, you know, Xandria, what is it that you need from this person? You know, they are who they are. If I truly want to help my friend, then what I can do is understand that they don't have the ability at the moment. You know, when someone is not ready, it simply means that they don't have the capacity, they don't have the ability at the moment to let go of their pain. You know, they are angry, and I can see clearly how they can let go of their anger and why they should let go of their anger, and I can see clearly that it's the anger that's causing them their suffering. But if I am going to continue feeling frustrated, or I'm going to like judge the person for not being able to see something that's so logical, then I have to go acknowledge to myself that, hey, actually I think I'm going to help my friend, but actually no, it's about me, it's about my ego, right? It's about my friend. Oh, imagine like if my friend suddenly go, oh my god, you know, Xandria, you're right. Yeah, it's my anger, you know, you're so right. I need to let go of it. Oh, thank you for helping me. If my friend say that, then of course I feel good, right? Like, wow, you know, like, wow, smart, huh? Wow, I'm so good, right? Like, wow, it's my ego, right? And so, like, the satisfaction we feel from helping someone, I've realized, and I've examined this quite deeply within myself, is it just comes from my own pride, you know? Because if I genuinely am practicing compassion and understanding and kindness towards another human being, then I will have no need for them to change. I can just offer a perspective and then give understanding that when they develop the capability and ability, and when they themselves want to go on that journey, then we can have another conversation. You know, maybe they'll come and look for me then. And this, for me, is such an important practice for myself. And I hope that it helps you too. All right, I hope that today's live chat has been helpful. As I continue to learn more about letting go and learning more about understanding ourselves better, understanding myself better, learning how to live a happier life, learning how to live with more compassion and less judgment and anger, I will continue to share it with you, you know, through the daily videos, through our live chats, through my personal coaching, which I'm going to start at the end of this month, and I will announce it. You know, I'm going to open up one-on-one personal sessions with me. So if you have a challenge in your life that you're going through, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your work, whether it's your career, whether it's your self-confidence, you know, or even small things like your own feelings towards yourself, your self-esteem, your confidence, public speaking, you know, or it's a bigger thing like, you know, tension and stress, or conflict with your family or with your spouse, or you're undergoing a situation in your relationship that you feel like you don't really know how to proceed, you know. And I hope that like these one-on-one sessions will be able to help you find ways and practice a solution to overcome what it is that you're going through. Yeah. And so I'll announce that when it's actually happening. I won't be taking on a lot at one time. It will be by an application process. So there'll be a form that you'll be filling out because I want to see whether I can help, you know, what you're going through. I don't just want to take your money, you know, like I am doing. I am charging for it, and I want to be able to genuinely help you create the kind of life that you want to live, you know. It is a huge responsibility, and I am looking forward to it. So yeah, tomorrow Yuri and I will be on. Hopefully I'll keep you posted. I'll let you know. If Yuri is not on, I'll come on and talk to you guys. I know that I didn't really read a lot of comments today, so tomorrow come early at 9 p.m. GST and ask any questions that you have. Thank you so much for joining. Have a fantastic Wednesday, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Be happy always.